All right. You're tuned to WKRK in Murphy, 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable 25, and country.am. It's Monday, and every Monday about this same time, we have the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office with us to talk about what's going on around the community. And the Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Derek Palmer joined us. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning.
Had a busy week, I understand.
Yeah, it's been a busy week. Well, it's actually been a busy few weeks. It's been a lot of stuff going on.
Do you just enjoy those when there's not a lot of crime happening and you can just relax for a little bit?
I do, but sometimes it's like the calm before the storm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when things are real calm and real quiet, not anything's going on. I'm kind of on the edge, anticipating something to happen.
I understand that.
Yeah, and it's so you don't really kind of enjoy it, but you don't really enjoy it because you're always expecting something to pop up.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've had a pretty busy weekend. We were talking off the air that you had a high-speed chase over the weekend in Grape Creek community.
Right. Yeah.
And
a lot of people's been asking about that.
And that involved a juvenile, so we won't give out any names on the air.
Yeah, we're not. I doubt we'll even really do a press release on it. If we do, we'll do a limited one since it was a juvenile. But there was a high-speed chase in the Grape Creek community on Saturday, and it was with a stolen vehicle, and couldn't find out it was a juvenile that had stolen the vehicle and was driving it. But the chase was had some pretty high speeds involved in it, and it was pretty treacherous during that. I was involved in it. I was down there with one of my deputies and joined the pursuit with them as it was coming up Joe Brown Highway. A lot of people asked the question, well, why were y'all chasing it? You know, why didn't you just let them go if it was that dangerous? But what a lot of people didn't understand was one of the reasons for trying to stop the vehicle, in addition to being stolen, was they were driving that way previous to us trying to stop them. We got several reports of the vehicle being on the wrong side of the road, almost hitting people head on, driving erratically, and those type of things. So I don't think it made a whole lot of difference whether we were behind them or whether we wasn't. They were still driving that away.
So that 14-year-old was putting other people's lives at risk by driving that way before you even got involved.
Right, yeah. And so it was one of those things where you had to weigh those options. And even though it did appear that, that a wreck was imminent, we still felt like it was important to try to get them to stop as quickly as we could so that type of behavior didn't continue down there.
You said it lasted about 30 minutes?
Yeah, about 30 minutes or so. We were down there for a couple hours looking for it, but it was the chase itself probably was around 30 minutes, something like that, 20 to 30 minutes. But the suspect did stop. We did get him. He fled on foot. We did get him arrested, and no one got hurt. No, there was no accidents or anything like that. But a lot of people had been calling wanting to know if the suspect was apprehended and those type of things, and just let people out there know he was apprehended.
All right. Yeah. Let's see. This past week, you had we put on the radio last week about the drill at the Department of Social Services. Yeah. Tell us how that went and what it was preparing for.
Oh, yeah. We had a drill last weekend, a kind of something similar to what we do at the schools with the lockdowns at the school. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we're doing is we're evaluating our county offices and the things around the county as far as the danger levels and how we can be safe within our county offices. Robin Caldwell, the emergency management director, also came down and was involved in that and kind of give us some advice and some tips on things. But basically what we did a mock scenario at the DSS building where we had a parent that came in for visitation with their child, and the scenario was that they become irate and started shooting within the DSS building. So what we did is we responded like we would regularly respond to it. We didn't do a drill where we had SWAT teams stacked up and ready to go in and all that. We wanted to do it realistically. So what we did, we staged officers. Of course, there's utmost safety involved in this. So all the officers were searched. They were all weapons were secured and cleared to make sure there was no live ammunition or anything like that. Their guns were taped up and indicating that that they had been checked and all those kind of things, and put armbands on them to let them know who had been checked. So we allowed no live ammunition within the building during this training. But the suspect, once he shot and once he opened fire within the building, then the scenario was the officers was going to go in just a couple at a time like we would with officers responding from the road somewhere. We did a search of the building. We did training with the DSS workers on escape routes and on what to do in the event that you're in the building. When you hear shots fired, whether you're going to flee or whether you're going to hide or fight back or those type of scenarios that you might find yourself in. So it was kind of a dual training. It was a dual training not just with police officers and how they respond to it, but it's also training with county employees within the building of how you react when those type of things happen. And we started that with the day before with doing classroom training with the DSS workers and teaching them a little bit about active shooter and active shooter drills and what those things entail. One of the things that we did with the training itself, though, was we did discharge blanks within the building, and that way people could hear kind of what it sounded like from different floors with gunshots and things of that nature, so they could kind of understand the difference between books falling and understand the difference between that and something, a gun going off. And so we just did a full-scale drill on that of officers responding, searching the building, taking the suspect out. And that did result in some things that we knew would happen because the DSS building is a very complicated building. It's multiple floors. It's glass windows and doors. It's multiple stairwells with an elevator. So we knew that it would not be an easy building to search, and that's the reason we decided to start with that building. So it did get some officers some training on what to do and what not to do, and obviously they've made some mistakes, and they're going to make mistakes in that, and the workers there made mistakes, but we want to make mistakes while it's training. We don't want to make mistakes while it's live.
That's the beauty of mistakes, is you can learn from mistakes.
That's it, and that's the whole purpose of the training, and that's one of the things we always try to encourage the school system and teachers and school resource officers when we do training with them is that the point of the training is to make mistakes and to realize what works and what doesn't work. So in the event of a real-life scenario, we can learn from those mistakes that we've made in training and fix those things and utilize it in real-life scenarios. And hopefully we never have a real-life scenario to deal with. But the way society is going, the things that we're seeing around the country, we want to just be prepared. We want to be prepared in the event that something like that happens.
And we used to live in a community, and I know growing up, we would always think, well, that kind of thing can't happen here because we live in a small, close-knit community. But as we've seen multiple times, things of the things we see on the national news, they now happen here.
Well, you know, even when you think about the things like school shootings, we typically think of those things as something that's occurred recently. That in modern history that it's all of a sudden now a problem. But the fact of the matter is that's not a modern thing. It's just it gets publicized more now. And it gets publicized more because of the media outlets and the accessibility of the internet and social media and all these kind of things. As a matter of fact, when would you think that we had a shooting here in Cherokee County or in this region? When would you think that would be the earliest school shooting that you know of in this area? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea.
In the late 1800s in Polk County,
really,
a school teacher was shot with a shotgun in the classroom because a kid didn't do their homework and got disciplined. And a parent came in and shot the teacher. That was in the late 1800s.
So, like you said, we didn't have all the media outlets now to talk about this.
So it didn't get, with us and thinking about things now, we think about it something as a modern problem, a modern thing, but it isn't. It's something that we've dealt with all through the history of America. We've dealt with these things. But we want to be prepared in the event that those type of things happen because things are different now than they were in the 1800s. We don't have, a horse and buggy to escape on, and we don't have just a local community we have to worry about. Because now, just like with the murder that we had week before last, you have a situation where a subject can do a violent crime like that, and they can be completely in a different state in just a matter of a few minutes. And so things are a little bit different now. We have to react a little differently now. Weapons are different now, and so we have to do different kind of training now. And that's the whole purpose of these drills and these trainings and these things that we do. Is just to take the modern day aspect of things and apply it to modern day law enforcement and figure out a cohesive solution to that. And
back in the 1800s, I'm guessing that the Polk County law enforcement probably didn't have an effective way to communicate with neighboring counties to be on the lookout for this type of person. So I know that's a huge part of your job is being able to communicate with neighboring counties and states and local law enforcement and just working together to solve things.
One of the things that we do, we have a great working relationship with all of our neighboring counties, even in Tennessee and Georgia, those counties that's in different states. All of our neighboring counties, we have good working relationships with our law enforcement agencies in those states and those counties. And so when we had this thing that happened in Murphy where we had to get information out very quickly, we could put that out to the surrounding counties. And the surrounding counties are always willing and able to come out and be on the lookout for things and help us when we're looking for persons. We can even, through mutual aid agreements, and we've done this before, sometimes we even invite those counties over to Cherokee County to help us, or we will go to these other states or go to these other places and help them. And so it's important that we just pool our resources and that we all come together on fighting crime and looking at this stuff.
All right. Let's see. The drill at DSS, I was tuned in to the scanner trying to listen to what was going on, but I didn't hear anything. Was that on a secure channel?
Yeah, we did that on a different frequency. We contacted dispatch and also put down the media outlets that we would be doing it. We did it on a secured frequency because, as you know, when you put stuff like that over the radio, you can say drill or training as many times as in every sentence.
Still people panic.
Still people panic. Still people hear this stuff going on, and by the time a couple phone calls are made and a couple things are put on social media, then it gets out there that we've had a disaster or a tragedy. So we wanted to do this on secure frequency so that we could communicate with each other. But we didn't put a panic out there in the community for everybody hearing this stuff. And as a matter of fact, even when I sat here talking about it on the radio, I was concerned about the way that I was phrasing things because I didn't want people just to tune in and hear parts of that and then start calling around wanting to know if anybody heard about the shooting at DSS this week. You know,
people catch just bits and pieces of conversation.
Right. And so it was training, it was a drill, and we wanted people to understand that. And we took extreme security precautions. We even went out and blocked the road off so civilians couldn't come into the parking lot during this time because we just didn't want to get in one of those situations where there was miscommunication or misunderstanding or something bad happened out there.
Were there still calls coming in from people seeing the police presence there to 911?
They were a few. A lot of them were people just passing by, didn't know anything, just looked up and saw a lot of police cars and the parking lot being roped off and those kind of things, and blue lights in front of the building and, you know, those kind of stuff. So inevitably you're going to get a few calls. The information is not going to get out to everybody out there. It's going to get, some people are not going to get the message. But all in all, it went very well. It went very smooth. Dispatch was not inundated with calls. There was not a lot of things that happened. And I think that was due to putting this stuff out in the media and letting people know ahead of time and using secured frequency, so all that wasn't going out over scanner land.
Right. I was actually concerned about that. If it were on the scanner for public to be able to listen to, what kind of panic it would cause with people not understanding, because sometimes it's hard to understand what the scanner voices are saying because it's so fast, and a lot of times they're talking in code. Yeah. And I was wondering if that would create a panic. So,
well, like part of that scenario that we did out there, and obviously, you know, if a person was dead set on it, you know, whether it's that building or any building, courthouse, whatever, you could kill a lot of people before an officer could respond and take you out in most cases. So one of the things that we were instructing our bad guy, the guy that was playing the role of the bad guy, we were instructing him not to go in with the purpose of just trying to wipe a lot of people out, because this is training. I mean, you could go in there and wipe about half the people out. That's not what the goal was. The goal was for officers to get some training and do things. But part of that, there was part of that scenario where he shot an officer. So an officer literally on that secured frequency had to get on and tell the dispatcher that he'd been shot, you know, and those kind of things. And so when you put those kind of things out over scanner land, like you say, when you're just tuning in and you don't hear it's a drill, all you hear is officer shot or you know, problems at DSS, hostages been held, all those kind of things. And so that gets put out there with people not knowing the full story. Right. And they're already putting things on social media and making phone calls and all that. So
social media can either be our friend or enemy sometimes.
It can.
I'm sure it causes your office a lot of problems.
It does, but there's a lot of good things come through it too.
Right.
You know, it's a good way of getting a lot of information out there quickly. Going back to this thing that we had in Murphy where we were looking for this person, it was a way of putting stuff out there along with social media and with the regular media. It was a way of putting stuff out there to get that information for people to be looking for this and be aware of it. And there were people out there calling, saying, "Hey, I saw a vehicle matching this description. It was here, or it was there, or I saw your suspect. He was headed out west, going toward Tennessee." So by being able to put that information out on social media and getting that feedback back almost immediately from the public,
Right.
even when we get reports of him being on the west end of the county going toward Tennessee, even though you may not have an officer right there physically there, that give us the ability to call Polk County and say, be on the lookout, because we had a report of him going toward the Tennessee line here. And so, that can be some very good things from social media also.
So you can actually use that to extend your office to people that are not working
Right.
for you. The more eyes and ears out there.
Right. Law enforcement is a strange thing that a lot of people don't understand, is that it takes community involvement to get anything accomplished. And if we had no community involvement, we could get a few things accomplished. I mean, your officers are going to see things, you're going to find things, you're going to stumble onto things. But a lot of what law enforcement is having that relationship with the community. And a lot of what law enforcement is getting those eyes and ears out there and getting feedback and reporting back to law enforcement what's happening in these communities. And so a lot of our drug cases, drug houses, things we're looking at, information that we're running through our investigators on stolen property and breaking and enterings, I would say most of that information comes from community. It comes from people calling in and saying, "Hey, I have some information for you here."
I was just going to ask you what percentage of your arrests are a result of tips from the public?
I don't have a number for you, but I would say most of it.
Most of it?
I'd say most of what we do has public involvement.
Yeah, I was just trying, because your officers are usually not going to be there at the right time, at the right place to
Right.
catch something happen.
Right.
But if they have knowledge that kind of leads them to that area,
Yeah.
then they can do their job.
And that's the thing about it. Like, say you have a house broken into and property was stolen. A lot of times, even though we may not have a lead on that, no fingerprints, no forensic evidence as to who did it, a lot of times those investigators are able to follow that up and solve that crime based on someone calling in saying, "Hey, I saw so-and-so out here trying to sell a gun," or so-and-so with some weed eaters, or so-and-so with some televisions that's trying to pawn these off, selling them real cheap. I don't know if they're stolen or not, but I saw this person with them. And that gives, a lot of times, our investigators a place to start looking, someone to start looking at. And sometimes they can rule those out and have absolutely nothing to do with the crime, but a lot of times that information leads the investigators in the right direction of who to be looking for.
All right. We talked about burglar alarms a few weeks ago, which I looked at some of these online too. I know some of them call like 911 if
Right.
there's a burglary, and then some are just audible alarms,
Right.
which seem to be more effective. The loud alarms at the location, or those that are silent but get the law enforcement out there.
It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you're just trying to accomplish to get someone off your property, to scare them, to run them off, obviously the audible alarm.
Right.
Especially if you have neighbors and things of that nature, something that's loud enough to draw attention from your neighbors and your community. If your goal is to keep your stuff from getting stolen, just to get them away. If your goal is that you're going to try to get the person arrested and try to get them caught, then the silent alarm, the call to 911 is obviously the way to go on that, because a lot of times officers respond to the house while they're still there and while they're still in possession of stuff. And so a lot of times that gets the person caught. So it kind of really depends on what your goal is and how much money you want to spend and all those kind of things. I know there's some people out there that is really could care less, is not really interested in getting people caught. They don't want to go to court. They don't want to testify. They don't want to do these things. And their goal is I just don't want my property stolen. I just don't want somebody in my house getting my stuff. And so for a lot of those people, the audible alarm, just in-house audible alarm, is the way they go with that.
And some people use the security cameras, and they can watch on their phone whoever's
Right.
in their house and take a snapshot, or
Right.
have a DVR that's recording.
And the way cameras are now, cameras can be hidden anywhere. And you have the big bulky cameras you see on the garages and at the end of the house that shine on driveways and all those, right down to hidden cameras within the house that could be in smoke detectors or could be in alarm clocks or whatever, that people may not even realize there's a camera there in the house. And so, like I say, it depends on what your goal is. It depends on whether you want that visibility to try to keep people away from your property and keep them off your property, or do you want that hidden capability of trying to get someone caught and trying to get someone arrested? So it really depends on what the goal of that person is and what they're trying to accomplish.
And I know the cameras are some of them are so high quality now, you can just zoom in on a tag number or even a like a logo on someone's shirt
Right.
and get some information that way if you get the higher end cameras there.
Right. A lot of the HD cameras and the higher end cameras, even when you download things on the computer, if it's a snapshot, you can zoom in and get pretty good quality, pretty good resolution on that. A lot of your cheaper camera systems, your low grade cameras, don't allow the zoom in feature. I mean, you can zoom in, but it blurs everything up because of the pixelation. So,
And I think we've all seen the those camera footages from some of the stores trying to look for this burglar, and then people comment how grainy the picture is,
Right.
and that is a part of the cheaper cameras
right.
system.
It depends on the pixelation and
And of course, the angle too. If you're looking
Right.
down on top of somebody's head, you're not
Right.
going to get a good identification.
Yeah, but like I say, I always encourage people, and I've done it with my place, and I encourage other people to do it. If you can afford it, get the camera systems, get the alarms, those type of things that happen. Even if they do break in your house and steal your stuff, if you got a good camera system, you got a good alarm. Sometimes that may keep them away from your house from totally cleaning you out. They may pick up something. But when you got the camera systems too to go along with that, then it gives the investigator and the sheriff's office a good place to start looking and people to start looking for.
And those can be helpful in other areas too. Like if you have a package delivered
Right.
and it's not there, you can always roll back your camera and see that was delivered and someone took your package off your
Right.
porch. Because I'm sure that happens.
Yeah, it does. It does. Mostly that happens a lot around Christmas time, and when a lot of UPS deliveries and things of that nature, we have people that try to pick up packages off porches and stuff like that, and they're very good for that also.
All right. Let's see. We want to touch also on the scams that are even more rampant these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, when you come in here, sometimes you feel like that you're a broken record and you're putting all this information out every week, and you think, well, I don't know why I'm saying this again, because people get tired of hearing it. But there's still a lot of people that don't understand and don't know about the IRS scams that are going on and things that are happening out there. And just so people understand this and know, our Cherokee County has become inundated in the last couple of weeks with the IRS scam. I actually sat up front in the office. Our secretary had to go do something for a while one evening. I sat up there just a few minutes and answered the phones for while she ran out and did something. And in a matter of about 10, 15 minutes, I bet you I answered 8 or 10 phone calls from people calling in about IRS scams and things going on in the community. And so people understand this. Anybody can fall victim to this. They call my cell phone. They call cell phones of my investigators. They call cell phones of my deputies that are out there. Our homes get the same calls that everybody else is getting. And so it's not a matter of who you are. They're going to call everybody. They're going to call anybody and everybody they can call. But so that people understand this, that the people that's making these phone calls, that even though they show up American numbers
Right.
with different area codes, and they come back from Chicago or Florida or Texas or California or whatever, those people are not in the United States of America. They are overseas. They're coming in from India and Africa and a lot of these Middle Eastern countries. In a lot of these scams that are going on, they're actually, the money that's being gained from these scams are actually going back and funding terrorist organizations. And so if you do give them money or you get scared and you send them something, there's absolutely no way of recovering it. There's no way of getting it back. The FBI, have dealt with this stuff for years, and because of dealing with foreign countries and dealing with rules and guidelines from overseas, the FBI can't go in and recover your money and can't get your money back.
No jurisdiction in that area.
That's it. They're just, once you send it to them, that it's gone. And so the thing I keep reminding people and want people to understand is that this is a scam. And no one from the IRS is going to call you and threaten you over the telephone. They're not going to call you and tell you they have a warrant. They're not going to call you and tell you that you're going to be arrested if you don't comply and all these kind of things. What'll happen is if IRS has a problem with your taxes or you need to be audited or anything like that, they are going to send you a certified letter in the mail. And they'll give you a contact name and number for you to call them and schedule appointments and those kind of things. So if you get a call from anybody that's threatening you and telling you that you're going to go to jail if you don't give them money and there's an arrest warrant for you and all that, just know that it's a scam. One thing I also want to say about this is that, like I say, anybody can fall prey to this. And as far as your numbers and protecting your numbers, I was telling Tim before the show that I have a cell phone. My cell phone number that I have now, I've had it for about 5 years, this current number. And when I first got my phone, there was a drug pharmaceutical place, I'm sure it's overseas, call wanting to sell me pharmaceutical drugs. I told them I was not interested, don't call me back no more, those kind of things. That was 5 years ago. And they still call me. They still call me periodically, a couple times a month they'll call. Or it's less frequent now than it was in the beginning. They were calling me every day. Now it's less frequent, but they're still calling me. And that's 5 years, So want people to understand this, that it's not that we don't want to do anything to help you or that we're unwilling to help you. It's just there's absolutely nothing we can do to stop the calls from coming. There's nothing we can do to arrest these people. There's nothing we can do to recover your money. And so as they call, the only real recourse you have is just hanging up the phone and not talking to them. Or, I've told people before, I've done this before myself, get you a good whistle and blow it in the phone when they call, But do something to try to discourage them from calling you back. And I promise you that if people are calling you and telling you they're IRS and they've got a warrant, you owe them money and they want information, don't give them any information. Just ignore them, hang up the phone. But there's nothing we can do as a sheriff's office about it.
I know on some smartphones, I have a Droid Note 3, I think. You can actually block numbers that are unwanted if it comes in, and you can just go back and put this on the block list. But that helps if they call from the same number. But if they call from a different number, then that one's going to get called.
What it is, and the reason it shows up American numbers is because it's what they call a reroute number. And what it is when you call from overseas, it has to go through an American switchboard.
Right.
And so when it goes to the American switchboard, then it's assigned a number. And so what happens is sometimes you can call that same number back and get a hold of somebody, but sometimes you call that same number back and it goes to a computer or it goes to a dead end somewhere. And that might be because that number is currently not assigned. And so sometimes you can call multiple numbers and get the same person, but it depends on when they call and what number's assigned to that. So if you block a number and you got that number blocked, that may protect you on that number. But if they call into a different switchboard and it's assigned a different reroute number, they can still get to your phone and still call you. So it's almost impossible to keep them from calling your phone once your number's out there.
And it's not always a good idea to call the number back either, because some of these numbers are like on an island, a different country, and then you incur a huge long-distance fee because that country makes a lot of money by an unfair connect fee.
And that's what happens a lot of times is when people call them back, they looks like they're calling Chicago or looks like they're calling Charlotte or Chattanooga or something like that. But actually, like you say, you're getting rerouted overseas. And so on your phone bill, you may get your phone bill and say a long-distance charge on your phone bill. And what you're not realizing is when you think you're calling Chattanooga or Cleveland, what you're really calling is Africa or calling India or calling one of these Middle Eastern countries. And when that is rerouted overseas, and you get charged a long-distance fee.
People go to great lengths to be dishonest and to scam people out of money.
They do. If they would just use their powers for good, we'd be a lot better place.
Exactly. I mean, that really is a talent in itself to be able to conjure up something so elaborate. If that were just used to good, we'd be in a much better place, like you say.
Be a much better world, wouldn't it?
All right, Sheriff, I can see our time has come and gone. Anything you want to add to the program before we say goodbye?
No, I just want to let everybody know that we are closing up our fiscal budget year and getting ready to start another one here in a little over a month. And so we're trying to keep our budgets low, keep things down. We've got a few extra cars this year to try to get our fleet up to par, and we've had a couple internal changes, but overall the budget's remaining the same, and we've not had any great increases. So we're trying to keep that as low as we can and keep trucking right along.
Very good. I know you just have to love budget time.
Oh, I do. It's exciting.
Not boring at all,
No.
I'm sure. All right, Sheriff, thank you very much. We'll do this again next week, same time, same place. Your weather forecast is next, brought to you by Carpet Mart. When it's time to redo your floors, or if you need flooring for a brand new home, then it's time to call Carpet Mart in Murphy, North Carolina.